If 10% Pakistan starts behaving like how Amin had to behave in Ireland when he had no choice, this country in the next 10 years will rule the world. You dance until it rains.
What are you doing in Pakistan?
What a direct question. What the heck are you doing in Pakistan? Don't think life is a T20. It's not a one-day match. It's a test match. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
The fitness industry is booming worldwide, yet in many emerging markets, it remains underdeveloped, unstructured, and often inaccessible. Our guest today, Ahmar Azam, is a business transformation expert. As the founder and CEO of TriFit, Ahmar is pioneering a high-tech, smart fitness concept infused with a personal touch.
Where does opportunity come from? Problems, right? Your ability to identify problems. I think we are living in heaven with respect to problems. Problem after problem after problem, everything is a problem. Now you find your favorite problem that you like, then you research to find a solution for it. God really blessed me in many ways. I entered the C-suite in my early 30s, and we are in business of member experience. Fitness is just a tool to deliver member experience.
A gym that isn't just a place to work out, but a movement built on tribes, results, and innovation.
I've helped people become millionaire in dollar terms. I've helped people who could not even think that they'll ever own an apartment, now they own houses. You want to be successful financially? Never ever be a...
Ahmar Azam, what are you doing in Pakistan? Everybody is looking to get away and have an opportunity somewhere abroad so they can actually go towards greener pastures. And after having spent almost 30 years out of the country, you decide to come back here. What's going through your head?
A lot of things. First of all, thank you very much for having me over, Amin. What a direct question. What the heck are you doing in Pakistan? I love it. Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, there is a personal aspect, and there is also a professional aspect. As they say that one man's garbage is other man's treasure. So for a lot of people, actually I should say that when I left Pakistan, that was 1991. And I'll say it in Urdu and I'll translate in English as well. When I was leaving in 1991, I'd just finished my A-levels and I was going to London. So us waqt bhi mulk nazuk halat se guzar raha tha. So Pakistan was going through some critical times at the time. And it's quite interesting that those circumstances have continued. And still people are quitting Pakistan or leaving Pakistan saying exactly the same thing. So, third world countries, certain countries are blessed like we are. The risk pendulum keeps swinging, right? We are never stable. Sometimes it swings too far. And we've seen those episodes also in Pakistan. But for all practical purposes, I firmly believe that Pakistan is a land of opportunities. For a lot of us who have had the opportunity to live abroad and have had some element of success or some taste of success, and they're from Pakistan. So I have a cliche, I say that you can get a Pakistani out of Pakistan, but many a times you cannot get Pakistan out of a Pakistani. So I was, we were well settled in the US, and I was always thinking that at some point in time, I want to come back to Pakistan. I even took a job with a Pakistani bank to be their CEO or GM. That was many, many years ago. That was in 2005, 6, and 7. Again, thinking that this could be a segue for me to come back to Pakistan. Didn't happen at the time. And then eventually decided to move to Saudi Arabia in 2011, also thinking this would be a segue to move to Pakistan, and eventually it happened. Moving to Pakistan, frankly, I found an opportunity, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, that is very ripe for the country that we're sitting in right now, and we're very excited about that. But at the same time, I've played, I defined my life as a test match. A test match has 4 innings. My first inning, was in the UK when I was studying and I was doing my chartered accountancy subsequently.
So cricket test match you're referring to?
A cricket test match. For the American audience, they would not understand it, but for the British audience, they would. Then my second inning was in the US. It was a lot of hard work because that's when I really, really learned everything that I became today. God really blessed me in many ways. I entered the C-suite in my early 30s, So I was very blessed from that perspective, but I define luck as WRK. I work very hard for it. But again, I consider myself to be tremendously blessed. So second inning was in the US. And then, as I said, we moved to Saudi Arabia, but that also happened because of a certain reason. My father passed away while performing Hajj, and he's buried in Mecca. I visited his grave on Sunday before coming. I was in Saudi Arabia, as you know, last week. So that kind of again inspired me that, you know what, I need to move towards Pakistan. In 2011, things were not looking very good in Pakistan. As I said, the risk pendulum, back then it was swinging a little bit too extreme. If you remember Talibanization, a lot of suicide bombing, a lot of things were happening. So we decided as a family to move to Saudi Arabia. My third inning. In my third inning, I cashed in the results of all my efforts, frankly. It was very rewarding. Rewarding in many ways. My first job was a group CFO for a large company, a conglomerate, a Saudi conglomerate. And then one day I got a phone call from a private equity group saying that they're looking for a CFO for a fitness chain. So at that time, everybody told me that, Ahmar, you're crazy. You're working for a very large group. You're a CFO, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, you know, in the US when I was there, I mean, a lot of people knew me for what I'd done in the US, right? As I said, I'd spent 12, 13 years in the US. And so I felt that in Saudi, I'm successful, perhaps professionally and financially, but not too many people know me. So this particular private equity group who had invested in a small chain of fitness clubs. Now, from Pakistan's perspective, it's still very large, but from Saudi perspective or international perspective, it's still a small chain of fitness clubs. So I joined them as a CFO, worked very hard, fell in love with the business, and then did one of the most successful IPOs in the history of Saudi Arabia. I led that. Then the Saudis decided to make me the CEO of the same company, took the business to the next level. That was the third inning. And then and then, as I said, the segue to the final inning in Pakistan. Why Pakistan? Of course, one, it's a home country. Second is, professionally, I told you that I feel that what we're doing is very right for Pakistan. But personally, three reasons. Number one is that I wanted to play my last inning, my test match inning, while sort of being there with my brothers, my mother, my close friends. I felt that that was very important for me. Because, as I said, Pakistan or a Pakistani example that I quoted, I felt that many people in Saudi Arabia, they were hoping that they would be able to retire in Pakistan while sending the children to the West to study. And the children would go to the West, get settled, and then when they retire, frankly, there's nobody in Pakistan. So that was the second reason. I felt that if I bring my children to Pakistan, of course, they'll still go to the West and get educated, but they'll have a base to call home. So today, my daughter, she is in New York, and she is doing investment banking, but deep down, she knows that Pakistan is home now. Before, when we were in the US, it was a 1 week or 2 week holiday every single year. But now living in Pakistan, it makes a big difference. Now they've got friends, they're entrenched. My son, same thing. He went to university in Dubai, came back, now he's working with us. The other two, one, of course, they have more time, and they're deeply entrenched. I mean, can you imagine our two younger daughters, Zara and Rania. Zara and Rania perhaps didn't know a word of Urdu 4 years ago when we moved here. And now fluent in Urdu. Rania just in under 11 category, she became Pakistan's #1 gymnast. 2 golds and 1 silver. She's on every TV channel. Speaking in Urdu. So because she has a bit of an accent, still has an accent. So thought process, the anchor said that you can speak both in Urdu and English. Rania's response, she's mashallah 10 years old, her response was that if I speak in Urdu and English or just English, maybe 60-70% people will not be able to understand me. So she gave her entire interview in Urdu, first Geo News, then ARY News, then a couple other tomorrow also she's going to some channel. And her older sister, Zara, again, and I just listened to her Nayyar Noor song. She's in the school band, and and she was singing Nayyar Noor, and I was sitting there thinking, even I can't sing that song, and she's able to. So frankly, what I feel is that we have slowed down the westernization process that perhaps could have started, or that had started already if we had or continued if we had stayed in the U.S. And third reason is that frankly I didn't want to retire in the West. I was seeing people retire in the West where there was no family connection, right? There was nobody there. We're still Americans. We still call US our home as well. I've got great friends there. I just didn't want to retire there because I felt that I'll be a very lonely soul, either a very lonely soul or a glorified babysitter to our children. And we didn't want to do that.
Such a fascinating thought process, very intelligent thought process, and I can just alone on this spend a number of hours, breaking it down to simplify it for a lot of our viewers, right? But thank you for sharing this, and can you bring us a little bit back at the beginning, before 1991? What was it like when you were growing up? What do you remember Pakistan being at that time when you were, up until your A levels? And what was the family dynamics like, which obviously has a direct correlation of you coming back and wanting to spend time with your family. Many people may not even have that opportunity or that option, right? So I want to just hone in a little bit in that for a couple of minutes before we move on.
I mean, family dynamics was fantastic. I think I've heard you use that example of a village, right? Where, you don't raise a child, but the village does, right? So the families were like that, right? So, of course, parents are there, to discipline, to give us everything that we want, and I'm extremely grateful because I'm actually tremendously blessed for the family I was born into. But then my uncles, my aunts, friends, their older brothers. So there was an entire ecosystem that was playing a role in the development of a child, and let's call the child Ahmar Azam, right? And there is an impact, and you build a lot of memories, right, from that aspect, and you learn success principles. You watch things that work. You develop a lot of experience. You watch your relatives that are succeeding, and they become examples of success, and your parents are pointing towards them. Your lot of cousins, some of them are doing extremely well in terms of studying, growing up, some of them not doing extremely well. So parents are able to point examples. If you study, you're going to become like him. If you don't study, you're going to become like him. You have cousins and relatives who are extremely successful in sports or not. So there were always examples where, and that's something I felt that in the US I could not point to our children except for open the TV and point those stars. We had those stars in our family, right? Or not stars, or become, or aspiring stars. I don't want to use a negative word, but there were always examples. I'll give you an example, a very classic example. I wanted to become a chartered accountant. Now, my dad, although he was very successful, he was a managing director of a very large conglomerate in Pakistan, but he was not an accountant. So when I said I want to be a chartered accountant in the UK, he said, let's take you to a relative who's a qualified chartered accountant. So I said, but what about this uncle of ours, who's also very close to me? I'd like to talk to him. So my dad said, you know what? Yeah, I'm also close to that relative. But he did not pass chartered accounts. If you go and talk to him, he will not be able to tell you how to pass the exam. If he did know how to pass the exam, he would have done it himself. But then he took me, and I got mentored and counseled by another uncle who was a qualified chartered. So there were a lot of examples that you could follow. I think that's the best. Parents' upbringing was just phenomenal. Discipline were there. Many things. You know what? Hey, nobody is. I never pretend to be holier than the Pope. I can write a book on all the mistakes that I've done, and I can only write a page on all the right decisions I made. Right? But if I'd not done all those mistakes, I'll never be able to write one page of. So we made a lot of mistakes, but we always knew, right? Experimenting to learn about different things, perhaps those things were I didn't have to risk too much of my own self. There were a lot of examples that one could look around and see, if you do this, if you follow, you become like this, right? So a lot of examples. I think that is how Pakistan was and how I remember. Things have changed. I'll spend maybe a minute on that. I think as I've returned back, the reality check is that the family ecosystem is not as strong as it used to be. I think, but that's everywhere. Pakistan also is not far behind, especially urban Pakistan, which is unfortunate. The family ecosystem is not as close as it used to be. Everybody's sort of spending more time in their own little dynamics, so the family nucleus is not that strong as it used to be. The other thing is, I think where we have really, and we'll talk separately, but I'll put the seed in your mind, that where I've seen a tremendous decline is in ethics and work ethics. And I repeat, a tremendous decline in ethics and work ethics. And I think this is really what the main issue is as for anybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're aspiring professional, how you learn ethics and work ethics in an environment where everybody around you perhaps is not following that. And that is the foundation of success. You cannot become successful in life unless you follow ethics, good ethics, and a strong work ethic.
Very profound. So when you left Pakistan, you went to London. What was your time like when you went to London? What did you do in London?
So when I went to London, I went to a university called the London School of Economics. I graduated from the LSE. And then right after, I did my chartered accountancy. So that's what we did. So, back then it was quite interesting, right? Because I give that example. Again, as I said, I was quite blessed, from the perspective that my parents loved traveling. So from the age of 5, I remember traveling to US, traveling to UK every summer, Europe, all over the world. So we had a big exposure on various cultures, right? So from that perspective, I didn't get a cultural shock when I got there, but then I had a lot of friends, my other colleagues who had perhaps come for the first time, and there were some interesting stories that we had, but then yet I still had to learn a lot of things, right? I remember when I started my chartered accountancy, and then at work, people would talk about various soaps. I remember there was a soap called EastEnders, right? Mm-hmm. You may know. Mm-hmm. I think it's still going.
I used to watch it. Yeah.
So there was EastEnders, I remember, and then there was Neighbours, Australian soap. Mm-hmm. So every time, every day they would come back and they would talk about those soaps, and I didn't know. So I started watching them so that I can have a conversation. I can talk about cricket, I can talk about sports, but I couldn't talk about the local soaps. So the point is that, you have to assimilate and you have to understand, learn about the fact that, I come from a strong value system. I don't drink. That's my sort of religious as well as personal choice. But then to be able to hang around an environment, still go to the pub on Thursday night and Friday afternoon with friends, and be comfortable drinking water or ginger ale or Coke, right? And still be comfortable to spend a couple hours with your colleagues and friends and still joke and have fun. And then, so I think that obviously one has to learn how to, some people get very uncomfortable or they compromise on the values and assimilate in the culture to a point where, that's the choice, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I was able to maintain my boundary respectfully and still earn the respect and love of colleagues and friends while living there. So yes, some adjustment is required, and we did. Then from UK to the US, another world. So I'll give you an example. Since you're from Ireland, I still remember 1999 is when we moved to the US, and I was with Deloitte. I was, in management. I was hired as an assistant manager and then became a manager. So I remember I was standing in line. It was the first day, and we were all standing in line to take, just like you have a camera here, to take a picture to get our badge done, right? So everybody, is a Monday morning, and somebody turned around and asked me, "Hey, Ahmar, how was your weekend?" So I said, "Not too bad."
Yeah.
3 people in front of me and 3 people behind me who were talking, everybody stopped. And they all looked at me and they said, "You okay? What happened?" I said, "No, everything's okay."
Yeah,
"No,
not
you
too
said
bad,
not too
yeah.
bad." He said, so I said, So it was for them not too bad means actually it's bad. So American language is different.
Yeah.
Where the
Local
languages,
lingo, yeah.
the languages, it was awesome. It was great. Couldn't wait to be back at work. That's the American language. British language was not too bad, could be better, right?
It was grand. It was
Uh,
all right. Yeah.
Was all right, right? So that language doesn't quite fit into the US, especially New York culture, where I was. So again, learning, readjusting. Me and my wife went to Home Depot to buy a vacuum cleaner, but I didn't know vacuum cleaner. So I said, Hoover. I saw that you were saying Hoover. So back then, Hoover was really Hoover, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Hoover was, so I said, I'm looking for Hoover. He said, Hoover? I said, Hoover, what's Hoover? So I said, so I'm trying to explain, sir, you mean hovercraft? So we don't sell hovercrafts. So I said to Hoover, you know what you do to clean the carpet? Oh, you mean vacuum cleaner. So, terms like this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Photocopy, nobody says photocopy in the US. They say Xerox copy.
Yeah.
Those adjustments, again, some of those funny examples, but adjustments are required. Wherever you go, sometimes language, sometimes culture. American, again, we lived in England for almost 8.5, 9 years. But I'll tell you, I loved the American culture. I couldn't wait to pass my CA and leave the UK. Because with all the, my daughter also went to study in England. Maybe my other daughter will also go to England to study. But I just could not embrace the complacency in the British society.
Hustle wasn't there.
The hustle wasn't there. And I am a hustle guy, right? I wanted to achieve more. They would throw me out. They said, at 6 o'clock in the evening, the office would close. And they say, go home. What are you doing? Aren't you going to watch Neighbors?
Yeah.
So, and that, was missing. New York was 11:30 at night.
Go.
Let's go. Who's burning the midnight oil? And the limo is standing outside to pick you up, drive you home. You grab food. And I loved that energy, right?
Do you think it had something to do with the way Karachi used to be, that it never really slept and you grew up in there?
No. For me, it's interesting. I mean, actually back then Karachi slept. We used to sleep at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
For us, at 9:30, I mean, if you came to my house and if you rang the doorbell, nobody would come out. And the chowkidar, the gatekeeper, would tell you, who would be, he would say, sorry, everybody's sleeping.
Interesting.
We 9:30, man, lights were off. We were gone. 9:30, we were asleep. Because we had to wake up early in the morning and go to school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If there was back then, people didn't have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday dinner parties and shadis and weddings, right? It used to be on the weekend.
Yes.
Right? Of course, there'll always be those moments where there's a family wedding and that's going for a week or so, and then everybody's excited. But those two also are planned during vacation times, right? So there were certain dynamics that existed back then that perhaps don't exist to the level that exists today. So there were good family dynamics. But I wouldn't make that connection. My connection to that is that it required work ethic. So although we slept at 9 o'clock, but our parents were able to instill good work ethics in us. I saw my father building his life from zero and achieving the top of his profession, his career, as an MD for a large group, right? And purely through work ethic. He didn't inherit, although he was born into with a silver spoon, but because of migration and stuff, he lost a lot of things. So he had to start from scratch and build his life to a tremendous success, mashallah.
So where was he from in India?
Well, my mother's side is from Eastern UP.
Okay.
Sorry, my mother's side is from Western UP, and my father's side is from Eastern UP. Well, I've not been to either places, although I've traveled to India quite extensively at one point in time through business back in the US. But then again, Eastern, Western UP.
Yeah, I've only been once when I was about, I think 10 years of age or something, or even younger than that. And that was just because my grandmother had passed away, and she had a family, like some of the relatives over there. So we come from Gujarat. So yeah, but very vague memories, but never really went there. But that's just off the tangent. But another thing that listening to you triggered, the power of brand. So Hoover is a brand, and people actually now associate that, and it's not just UK, in Ireland and all, I'm sure there are other countries as well, So Hoover was such a pinnacle of quality that the actual dictionary word was replaced. Okay? And then the same pattern that you just shared was seen in America. So photocopy is the real dictionary word, but they use Xerox because that was the brand again.
That's right.
So you got me thinking that the power of brand, right? And the power of brand can only be generated through quality. And this is where the premium is, to an extent that you are now a household, sort of like a, household name basically. So yeah, so I didn't want to hijack your thought, but I just wanted to just throw that.
Actually, I'm glad you brought it up. So quality, you said brand can only be built on quality, if I understood you correctly. That is so true. But you also destroy if you don't focus on quality. The great example of the greatest airline, Pan Am, right? Pan Am was the largest airline in the world. It doesn't exist anymore because they stopped listening to their customers. They started feeling that, we're the best, we're the biggest. It's a commitment. Quality is a commitment. Quality is not a step that you achieve. It's a commitment for life. It's a commitment for generation that you got to stay committed to. Today, alhamdulillah, yes, TriFit is the #1 fitness brand in the world, in Pakistan, inshallah, in the world as well. I've said it.
And it'll happen.
It will happen, inshallah. But only to the point and the day till TriFit is focused on delivering quality. So in our company, from the T-boy, from the cleaner to the CEO, you ask anybody, what business are you in? And we are in business of member experience. Fitness is just a tool to deliver member experience. We spend all our time coaching, very tough, not easy, because still building the business in Pakistan, in today's Pakistan, where unfortunately the employability skills have become almost zero on a scale of 10, 1 to 10, absolutely zero. So from building from 0 to 1 to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and growing it, we're sitting in one of the most premium universities in Pakistan. It used to be one of the most premium universities in Pakistan. I have met and I have friends who have qualified from this university in the US who are sitting in unbelievable positions. And you'd say, you feel so proud.
Yeah.
But today, not today, but a few months ago, I interviewed a kid from NED University, and I was shocked at his level of common sense. He had a degree, and he had a half a decent degree as well. It's not that he just passed it.
Sad.
But his level of common sense, his understanding of critical thinking, problem solving, which are so, time management, quality, were, if I said 1, I'll probably be doing myself a disfavor, maybe doing him a big favor. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was really poor. So the focus is now in developing in our organization as well. And we're excited because, again, people are there, they're hungry, they're looking for information, right? So we are growing, we're developing, and that's the task, to make them stay committed and focused, because we keep telling them your surrounding is not conducive. It's actually conducive to you becoming what you said, the crab mentality or everything that the world is not doing, right? But if you focus on those things, some of the things we talked about before the podcast, work ethic, your personal examples, I mean, you yourself are such a huge success story, mashallah. It's such an inspiration. But people need to understand and study you and see what you've done. What price you paid in Ireland. If they're willing to pay the same price in Pakistan, they probably will never have to, and they'll have your success. But the question is, are they willing to pay that price?
Such a profound insight one more time, right, Ahmad? What you just touched on was the quality graduates universities here used to ship out. The fact is that there is a unicorn, $1 billion company, and the graduate is from NED.
There are multiple.
Right?
There are multiple of those.
Why were they able to do that outside of Pakistan, and why are they not able to do it in Pakistan?
So I believe they could have done it in Pakistan back then as well. I kind of, one of the reasons I've also come back and now I'm sort of committed to my decision is that, as I've lived in many countries, at least 4 countries, right, for an extended period of time, so I have a perspective. 10% of the people are usually responsible for building the country. America is 330 million people, so about 33 million people who are really, really smart. And they're the ones who are building the US. Canada, 30 million, 3 million very smart people. Saudi Arabia, about 20 million Saudis, 2 million are really very bright, very, very bright. So, but then our misfortune is our 10% are building other people's countries.
Critical mass.
We have exported them out. So I probably have added a couple of $1 billion to the global GDP, right? But then not in Pakistan, right? I was abroad doing it. So I feel responsible that if I had stayed back, perhaps things could have been different. My A-level class, 95% of us are abroad, or were abroad, not back here. But what if all of us were back here?
Things could have been very different.
Would things be different? Perhaps. I think so. So now that I'm back, I feel the responsibility to deliver that mission. And we will, and we are, inshallah. Will it take time? Yes, it will. Will it be more painful? Yes, it will be. But then that's okay. At the end of the day, we'll do what we need to do. The other advantage of building a business in Pakistan, Amin, is that because the baseline is so low, you start doing anything right and properly. Like when I got here and you introduced me to your team and I looked what you built here, right? It's phenomenal. It's really very, very nice. Then I was listening to the gentleman who's behind the camera and he was saying that I can create 20 different scenarios sitting in this podcast. Because the baseline is so low, you could, if you start doing things right, you become the number one brand. To try for 2 years, alhamdulillah, I don't say it, but that's what everybody tells us, that we are Pakistan's number one fitness brand. But it took us more than 5 to 6 years in Saudi Arabia to come to the same level of recognition as we have achieved in Pakistan in a matter of 2 years. Because virgin market, the baseline is very low. All you have to do is start doing things right in your space. Don't think life is a T20. It's not a one-day match. It's a test match. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you work that way, start learning how to enjoy small success. Not that I'll only bat when I can hit a 6. Pakistan is the only country where you'd have a top cricketer who'll come at the last ball when there is 1 run required and he'll swing his bat for a sixer. And you say, why did he not take a single?
Show off.
Because the whole society enjoys, we only want to do 6s and 4s. Now, we were not like this before. We knew how to build the pyramid of success, one step at a time. Because when you skip the steps, you'll hit all of them on your way down. And that time on your head, right? So I feel that there are people here. You just have to find them and start coaching them, like you have. I'm looking at your boys and girls who are part of your team. They have sharp eyes.
Appreciate that.
Even when you and I are talking, they are intently, all of them are focused. I know they're focused. I can see that in their eyes right now. But I've been on podcasts when we've had discussion and there are 3 people, I swear to God, asleep. Camera is on and they're asleep. And when the podcast finished and I looked at the camera, the gentleman was actually sleeping.
Yes.
But then, ability to pick those right people and build your ecosystem on that. If you can, you're sitting in a country with 6th most populous nation in the world, 250 million people. Imagine 10% is 25 million. If those 10%, that's a huge number. If 10% Pakistan starts behaving like how Amin had to behave in Ireland when he had no choice, or where Ahmar Azam behaved because he wanted to be successful professionally, this country in the next 10 years will rule the world.
And you just literally...
Because 25 million is more than the entire population of Canada. It's almost equal to the 10% people in the US who are running the entire world. It's not going to happen tomorrow. The decision starts today. It'll take 10 years. to create that impact.
And I think another thing, what you just touched on, thank you. Every time I speak with you, I learn a great deal and the depth that you have as an individual. So I feel it's a blessing to actually know you and the value that you're able to give us, right? One of the things that drive us, we talk about the 3% redefining possible. So you just literally touched on that, right? Is that you can redefine what's possible in your own story, in your own set of circumstances, right? And we talk about 3% is because you talk about this 10%. Yes, that's the number. And then the 3% is the critical mass who literally drive the success of most of the nation, right?
So, by the way, it's from 3%, 5%, 10%, who knows, right? Point is that the creme de la creme, not through privileged, through mindset.
100%.
It's a mindset thing.
That's it.
Right? I mean, you and I come from completely opposite background, and mashallah, at your age, I was not even close to the level of success that you've achieved. I know your story, right? Mashallah. But you achieved because maybe you and I had the same mindset, perhaps you have an even higher mindset. So it's not about what type of household yes, I was born in a half a decent household. I could travel. You couldn't. But then at your age, what you achieved, mashallah, because the thought process and the price that you're willing to pay and the price that you paid. That's what it is.
And you see, how can you actually get people to intrinsically understand what we are talking about or intrinsically instill that? Is there a sort of you won't call it a recipe, but is there something that you can ignite that into people or into youth? Because I see a lot of passion, right? Still, after having achieved what you have achieved, you are adamant that you will redefine what's possible, right? You are saying that I'm here and wheels down, and you shared a story of your daughters. It gave me immense sense of pride, right? Because just the other day I was speaking to Siptain. He was a guest here. He's the one who wrote the business plan for Habib University, the first liberal arts university. He writes for Dawn since the age of 18, 19, right? And Siptain said to me, child prodigies, right? According to him, it's a bit of an oxymoron. Why? Because he was using, I'm missing the name of this individual who used to be able to write great symphonies at the age of 7, 8, 9, right? But then he said that, his father was also a musician, right? So what you are able to do with the possibility that human brain accepts, once it's ignited, it can never go back to darkness. So is there a way to actually create that kind of ecosystem? What is the formula that comes to your mind from your experience?
If I'm today an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, 16-year-old, 22-year-old, 24-year-old, 30-year-old, it can be any age, but if I made a decision that I want to be successful, I want to create an impact, I want to live a life of no regrets, I want to live a life of success, I would do a few things. One, I would start reading. I would start reading books of success principles. I would start reading. I will start studying people who are already very successful. Today, back when we were growing up, that information was not readily available. We had to go and pick up books of biography of successful people and read them. But today, you can open a YouTube channel and you can use their platform to consume right content, not stupid content. I never like to watch content that makes other people rich. Today, I had a personal training session, and one of the other trainers walked up to me and said, "Sir, XYZ artist, he's also my client. Mashallah, we have a lot of celebrities who come to TriFit." He said, "Do you know?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Sir, you don't know? He's got 10 million followers." I said, "I really don't know." Right? I've probably watched 7 or 8 dramas in my entire life. And the 7th drama I watched because one of the biggest celebrities in Pakistan, Mr. Faisal Qureshi Saab, he's such a true gentleman. And he told me that please watch this drama, which was one of his dramas. And it was the best drama that I watched. It was probably my 7th drama. And there was an 8th drama that I started watching half with it.
What was that? I'm curious now. You just intrigued me.
the one that was shot in the north. I'm so bad with names.
Okay.
I'm getting better.
Okay.
So anyway, so this was the drama that was shot in the north of Pakistan, but his acting was Oscar-winning acting, absolutely Oscar-winning acting. I couldn't wait for the drama to come, and that's why I said you have put me on the wrong thing. I was so upset with him. I said you should have told me once it was completely on YouTube, because then I would have binge watched it and finished it. But then again, it was, and then there was another drama that my wife forced me to watch. I only watched half the end episodes, but it was also entertaining. It was Noman Ijaz's drama that happened recently. So, but anyway, so 8 dramas in my to my credit. So, second was consume the right content. Study people who are successful. Number 3, I would stop associating with people who have got broke mentality,
Poor mindset.
who bring me down, right? As the classic cliche is that how do you catch a cold? You go sit next to a guy who's got cold, and you'll catch a cold. So, and again, these are principles we learn in the US, right? Somebody told me one time, and it was like a slap on my face. I was very young, building my career. He said, you know what, Ahmar? I don't need to know your income. Your income is the average of the 5 people that you associate with. That was like a slap on my face. Because I said, who do I spend time with? And when I looked at their income, I said, that's exactly true. So then how do I change my income?
Change my
Because I can't change the income of those 5 people or 10 people. All I can do is I can change the people I associate with. How do you improve your game of tennis? Or these days, paddle, right? Because everybody's playing paddle.
Paddle, yeah.
By playing with people who are better than you, right? So change your association, who you're hanging out with. Watch your time. If I'm a young professional today or aspiring to be, I'll start writing at the end of, in the evening, start writing exactly what I did. No, nothing else. Just write what I did today and how much time I spent. 30 days later, your brain will automatically start helping you improve your productivity and efficiency. You don't need to show it to anybody. God has blessed you with a tremendous brain power. All you have to do is just write, what time I woke up, then what did I do? It'll take you 15 minutes, then it'll become a routine. Maybe then you'll do it in 10 minutes. But then you'll start watching, you'll say, oh my God, when you'll start writing it, 15 days later, you'll say, why did I do this? And why am I writing this again? Because I didn't finish it. Your brain will start feeding you with the right tools so that you can start solving problems, your own life problems, and becoming more efficient with your time. The difference between your time, my time, and Bill Gates or Elon Musk these days is what? Both of us have everybody has 24 hours.
1,440 minutes every day.
It's his ability to use it. It's just his ability to use it, right? And the more productive we get, the more efficient we get, the more successful we get. Success is not a mystery, right?
Ultimately, what you just triggered, right, is the productivity growth, right? It also comes from utilizing what you have available, and then you generate something meaningful. So not only that it benefits your own society, but it benefits the world at large as well, because we are a part of a global community per se, right? So first we need to fix and get the house in order. But when we are thinking about it, we can think global and act local, and we can think big and act small. So when you were talking about, that step by step we were able to do things before, but now we want those sixes, and we want, like every ball that is being, bowled, we want to just hit a boundary, right? And personally, what I think is that we have fallen into the trap of a lot of show off and a lot of unhealthy ego. For no reason, we think that we are king shits walking around, and it's a norm that I have experienced in different sort of settings as well. What is humility, right? What is being humble, and what is being successful? A successful individual would seek out the rooms where he can be made feel small or incompetent, right? What we naturally do is, because we don't work on these gradual things which really gives us the substance, byproduct of that is that we naturally are looking for these sixes. So when you say that we enjoy that as a nation because everybody is demanding that, why people are
So you mentioned China, for example. I am practicing these days Tai Chi. Okay. What am I learning from Tai Chi? To slow down, to appreciate the small little movements. I was, weightlifting when I was 15, I think, and I just literally got the stretch marks I still live with, right? So you see, being able to appreciate the small little things and watch them build and see it coming through over the longer period of times, have that delayed gratification. It has to be instilled that way. So one thing is that that there is a DNA, and then there is a collective DNA. And the collective DNA is what your example of that, who you are around. So yes, we can create these little circles, but when you think about on a national level, how are you going to actually address that? And how do you, so my question was the previous question, how do you convert this into a tablet where you basically filter through all the good people, but ultimately it's becoming a sort of a DNA of the entire nation. So what are your thoughts around that? What do you think we need to do when it comes to Pakistan? Because we talk about just your industry, and I know I have thrown a lot of questions here, but it's not like an answer, affirmative answer, but I'm trying to trigger your thought process. Fitness industry we're talking about. What
450 billion.
450 billion.
And the wellness industry is $6.8 trillion.
Wow. And what is Pakistan doing in it? How well are we doing?
Well, Pakistan is, Mubarak. We probably scored the lowest in the world with respect to fitness penetration. But that's also an opportunity. See, so I'll use this. I think, although, what I heard, you're triggering so many interesting thoughts, but I'll pick on the one that you just left me with. See, to build a business, what you're looking for? A businessman is looking for two things. One is a supportive ecosystem and opportunity. So let's focus on opportunity first. Where does opportunity come from? Problems, right? Your ability to identify problems first, which means then you need to keep your eyes and ears open. I think we are living in heaven with respect to problems. Because nothing works.
100%.
Problem after problem after problem, everything is a problem. Okay, good. Now you find your favorite problem that you like, then you research to find a solution for it. Write a business plan. If I'm a finance person, okay, otherwise take somebody's help, write a financial plan, solve the problem, make a lot of money. But you have to be able to identify the problem, and then research takes time to find a solution that will solve the problem. So what did we do? When I got here, when I was, it's like I give that example a lot. I said, when I got my first Audi, actually I didn't buy my first Audi, I got my first Audi. It was a brand new car. In the US, it was a company car given to me. It was an A6. It was 2005 December. It was a gray Audi. When I took that Audi out on the road and I started looking around, I said, oh my God, there are so many Audis. Before that, I had a Camry, Toyota Camry. But Camry didn't register at the time. Perhaps I would have, but with the Audi it did. And I said, oh my God, I thought when I'll come out on my Audi A6, I'll be the only gig in town. I'll be the only showstopper. Everybody will look. But then I said, oh my God, there's another one. Every 1 minute there was a vroom, another Audi A6 passed by, and many gray ones. Then I realized that because I'm sitting in Audi, my brain is now started looking for Audi. Fast forward that to Pakistan. When I got into the fitness industry in Saudi Arabia, I would come to visit my mother almost every month. So then only I started paying attention to the gyms that existed in Pakistan. And I said, oh my God, here's a tremendous opportunity. Because what I see is gym size of your studio, or maybe double the size of this, and charging more than what we are charging in Saudi Arabia. So I said, how come a gym which is on 4,000, 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 square feet space is charging more than, in many cases, double to what I'm charging when I have a 40, 50,000 square feet gym fitness club in Saudi Arabia, one of the 150, and now they're more than 250, with swimming pool, sauna, steam room, etc., hundreds of cardio machines, hundreds of strength machines, studios, etc. How come they're charging more? So I gave that example that there is an Alto and they put the logo of a Mercedes on it and start charging Mercedes price. So the fact that you have a logo on a Mercedes logo on an Alto doesn't make it a Mercedes. So I said, fantastic, what an opportunity. I could, because my ears and eyes were open. So you got to pay, one has to pay. The businessman is, the issue, yes, that's the opportunity. Pakistan is a country of opportunity. Everything, there's a problem here. Between the time I am going to sit in my car and I'll drive home, I bet I'm going to come across 15, 20 opportunities because I'll see problems. So there's an opportunity. Where we lack though is in the ecosystem, right? So businessman, the second thing is looking for ecosystem. So we're also struggling here, no doubt about it. Ease of business, unfortunately, we also score very low. Corruption, etc., those things are there. But then, and then of course I told you my biggest pain point is the human capital, the cognitive decline that the nation is experiencing. Although I don't think we came from monkeys, but today now I feel we're certainly going back to monkeys. We may not have come from monkeys, but we're certainly going back to monkeys if we don't arrest that problem, right? So how do you deal with the cognitive decline, right? As I said, common sense, etc. Some of the issues I cited earlier. But then I'll tell you, as you said, when I walked in, you were talking about God puts the village. One thing I learned in Pakistan, and God bless Pakistan, nothing stops here. I have come across issues and roadblocks in other parts of the world. In Saudi Arabia, when you get a roadblock, when it says Maafi, means Maafi. 99.99% is Maafi. Pakistan, there is never a roadblock, alhamdulillah. There is always a solution for a situation. Perhaps because maybe we are that type of a nation. We just, we are a Jugadu nation, if you know what I mean. We find an answer for every situation. So where there are challenges, every time there is a roadblock, alhamdulillah, God presents a great solution to get across.
A good friend of mine actually says that the truest definition of a free country, he uses it in that context, but you can literally, because of the lack of the systems and what's not available, or like you're trying to solve something that nobody even in the position of power or authority doesn't really know, you can literally find your way out if you're truly convicted to the problem that you're solving.
See, the other one aspect that when you were asking me what would I do if I'm a youngster, I think the number one thing I'll do, I mentioned several, I've already mentioned, but the number one thing I'll do is I'll stop blaming others to find a solution for my problem.
I like that.
Ahmar Azam, I have never looked at anybody to solve my problems. I have solved my own problems. I don't blame others for my circumstances. I never did. Thank God for it. Thank God for it. Because I think I'd be a disaster if I was looking for other people to make my life easier and simpler. Or, of course, I pay people. I pay salaries. It's a very simple solution. The staff that surround me, when I had a job, same mantra. When I have a business, same mantra. I said, when I had a job, I used to tell my people reporting to me, I said, you want to be successful financially? I promise you that I will do so much for you to become professionally successful and financially successful that you could not ever dream of it. But I expect one thing from you. Never, ever make me look bad, ever. In front of my bosses, rule number one. Rule number two, never ever be a stopper in my growth. I've helped people become millionaire in dollar terms. I've helped people who could not even think that they'll ever own an apartment, now they own houses. Because I said, just don't be politically motivated. Professionally, I've had people in my 9 years working in Saudi Arabia and job, people have had not double, triple, but quadruple, in some cases 5 times increase in their incomes. But we were on a mission. I said, the moment you go against me, you're allowed to. If you see me steal or cheat or lie against the company, you're allowed to do that. If you want, I can write on a piece of paper. But when I'm on a mission of growth, don't be a showstopper. Otherwise, you'll be and I used to throw out. I used to grab people. The first person, I'm talking right now, sitting here, I landed in the US in 2011. The first person I fired was actually a Saudi.
Interesting.
Because he was I caught him sleeping. But he was sleeping before also. I said, sorry, you can't work in my company, in my group. People said, you don't do that. I said, what's wrong with it? I said, I'm not saying put him in some other company, but not in our company. I had to set the ground rules. I fired a lot of people, but then the ones who left became extremely successful. Pakistan, simple mantra. I said, I pay you a lot of money. I pay you salary to make my life easy. If you're unable to, that's the door. Just today, we had to let go of one person who we hired 3 months ago, who gave us all sorts of promises and this and that, just doesn't have the work ethic. He has good ethics, but work ethic was a problem.
And how do you differentiate ethics and work ethics?
See, ethics is all the things I talked about, right? Integrity, principles, punctuality, problem solving, etc. Work ethic is the discipline that is, work ethic also includes, time management, problem solving, right? Being good for your word. Work ethic is also a subset of ethics. Work ethic also requires for you to genuinely and firmly believe that life is a test match, that life is a marathon, right? Yes, of course you'll get opportunities where you can become successful. For instance, some Saudis told me, Ahmar, why don't you become the CEO of the company? Those opportunities will come. But you just work your honest day. You give your best every single day, right? I was with the founder of Fitness Time, the company I work with. He invited me to his house when I was in Saudi last week. And he told me, Ahmar, I'm blessed. I was doing like this in my heart and I'm saying, God, I'm so grateful. Because he was saying that, Ahmar, remember when we hired you and you asked me how much money do you want to make? I asked these type of questions. I said, how much money do you want to make at the IPO? You remember you gave us one number, I gave you a number. That was a little bit exaggerated number, right? Because everybody does. Because obviously I'm hiring you, I want you to go for 100 as an example, but if I'm really happy with 80. He said, Ahmar, you worked so hard and you delivered, we made 5 times more than what we wanted to. Right? So that's why you get those career breaks, those promotions. It's again success principle, right? You're standing in front of a fireplace and you want heat. But the fireplace saying put wood first. But a Pakistani guy is saying, no, I want heat first. You got to put wood first. If you don't put wood, heat is not going to come out. So understand the success principle of sowing and reaping. You will only reap what you sow. Simple. You will only reap after you sow. That's called law of delayed gratification. You touched on it. The third law that God taught Adam to become successful, success principle, was the law of abundance. First was, you will only reap what you sow. Second was delayed gratification. You will only reap after you sow. Third one was law of abundance, which was, you will always reap more than you sow. How many seeds in an apple? 5, 6, 7? How many apples in a seed? Hundreds? Thousands?
Thousands.
Right? That's called law of abundance. But one has to follow this. Farming teaches. God taught farming. The first thing God taught Adam after he was sent back to earth, he was sent to earth, not back, was farming, right? Because through farming, we learned success principles. So these are things that we need to learn. Of course, as I said, luckily that this thing is available. You can open and you can consume the right content and learn these success principles.
So you are disrupting the fitness industry in Pakistan and you are doing it so beautifully, because I have been to your, amazing clubs, and I have had the opportunity to speak to the team as well. And thank you for that opportunity where I could see literally everything that you're talking about is in the motion, and you are, doing every day what needs to be done. So you did that in KSA in Saudi Arabia. So it was also an emerging market. You converted that successfully into an IPO. So I think you have a playbook which you are bringing to Pakistan, and you are not saying that I'm going to just do this in Pakistan. I'm going to bring this to be a success story out of Pakistan for the global world to see. Is that something I'm reading correct?
Inshallah, but that's the ultimate plan, right? The ultimate plan, inshallah, is to one, disrupt. As you build our top fitness chain in Pakistan, I used to say that when I was doing the roadshow, and I said, at that time we had 150 clubs. And I said, the reason we have 150 clubs because Fitness Time has built the ecosystem of 1,000 clubs in Saudi Arabia. But if those 850 clubs didn't exist, we would not have 150. It's not, life doesn't work that way, that there'll be only 150 clubs and all those 150 clubs will be mine. This is not how success principles work. You have to support the industry. And that's what we do. We created a sport and fitness academy. Sorry, I just want to give that example, where we probably graduated more than 200 people, fitness trainers, boys and girls. More than half don't work for us.
Interesting.
And these boys and girls have graduated with a certificate which has 100% reciprocity to work anywhere in the world. It's recognized by IC reps all over the world, right? Now, they could have gotten that certification in Dubai for 12,000, 14,000 dirhams, plus travel, etc., etc. And in Pakistan, we were able to give it to them for 3,000 or 4,000 dirham. But you have to build the ecosystem, right? So TriFit, inshallah, the next 5 to 6 years, we're going to have 100 plus clubs, right? But for us to have 100 plus clubs, I have to build the ecosystem so that there'll be 1,500, 2,000 clubs in Pakistan. Then only I'll have my 100 plus clubs, right? So that's one. The second thing is, yes, inshallah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the next 4 to 5 years, we will do the IPO here. We will in the next couple of years, because we already have tremendous interest. Some of the things that we're doing, are at a point where nobody else is doing in the world. We perfected, well, not perfected, but we keep perfecting the art and the science of fitness. Everybody's focused on that, right? Every fitness entrepreneur globally is focused on that. So we focused on that. 300 plus classes every single week. No chain in the world does it. The closest probably 150. So we are like a Guinness Book of World Record. Pumping fresh air, the quality of training, the investment we're making, the design. One of the things because I entered the fitness industry from outside, so and God had blessed me, or at least that's how I trained my mind to be able to identify issues and opportunities. So I came and I said, usually I noticed people have two memberships, one to a big box and one to a studio. A big box, they go for their cardio, their strength training, etc., etc. And then they, depending on the flavor of the month, either to a yoga studio or a Tai Chi studio, right? Or a spinning studio or a dance studio. So they have two memberships. So sitting in Saudi, I said, we have space. I run the biggest big box chain in Saudi Arabia and number 7 in the world. What if I bring the flavor inside the studio? So when we conceived TriFit brings the studios inside. So now our members don't have to go anywhere. If you want to do cardio, do cardio. You want to do strength, do strength. And then there are 300 classes, probably 24 genres of different classes. You want to do yoga, 3 or 5 types of yogas. You want to do spinning, there's a whole spinning studio, separate spinning studio. You want to do dance, you want to do boxing, you want to do anything, there's another studio for that. You want to do CrossFit, there's another studio for that, right? Did I miss anything? Yeah, you want to do HIIT, high interval intensity training, we have Inferno studio for that. So the flavor is there. You just open your phone, you book the class, it's all inclusive, one membership, you go experience, right? So then you bring the flavor inside. So that was an innovation. Maybe 2 years, 3 years down the road, there'll be some other innovation, right? This morning I woke up and somebody had posted on LinkedIn that you want to be successful, come up with your own innovation. And I said, your innovation is only innovation until somebody copies it and does it better than you. So I responded to that. So I said, no, I agree, but also disagree. I agree, yes, you want to innovate, but don't think that you'll have to always be the only unique concept in the world. There is Uber, then there is Careem. And now, when you go to different countries, they have their own local Ubers as well. But everybody's succeeding. Everybody, the owners of bike here, they picked up a concept from Indonesia, and they said, we'll copy it and do it here. Great concept, big company, very successful. Food Panda, here. Other countries also, food delivery was there, right? So the concept is not about being unique all the time. That's also something, as you know, youngsters will understand this. You should be first, yes, if you're able to come up with, the E equals MC square formula of atom bomb, good for you. But if you're not able to, if you're an average person like me, be a good student, watch and see how you can innovate further, copy. I spent half my life in consulting also. Maybe a little bit less than half now because I'm becoming old now. But at some point in time, I should say that I spent half my life. And I said a good consultant is somebody who can pick up an idea, package it, and make it better and sell it. So package it, make it better, use your own gray matter and improve it. So anyway, so fitness, same thing. People will study us also, and it's very humbling because I get invited to different gyms. I go there and I see that many of them have copied our concept. So it's very humbling because we must be doing something good, right? As they're sort of the design and everything. Yes, we spend a lot of money, but it's good to see that our people are copying it, right? So one thing that I missed, I'd like to say, if you allow me, is that we talked about what I would do, but then you know what? Yes, there is some responsibility on the people who are sitting in the high offices, right? I would just focus on one thing: ease of business. If corruption is not a problem. It will get solved if it has to get solved. Our problem is, as I said, building improving the employability, arresting the cognitive decline, and working on the things that we talked about in a lot of details. But then if I'm running the country, I would focus on creating ease of business. That's it. If you can just focus on ease of business, if I'm in the office, if I'm in the government office, whether I'm corrupt or not, that's not my area to judge. I'm not in that business. God has not put me responsible to tell people you are corrupt, you're not corrupt, you're dishonest, you're honest. No, it's not my job. God is there to judge, not me. But if I were to do my job, I would say all I'll do is how I can create ease of business. Okay, if I'm corrupt, maybe I'll do some corruption to create ease of business. If I'm not corrupt, I'll still do my job to create ease of business. The focus of the government should be ease of business. If they can focus on ease of business, in the next 10 years, as I said, 25 million people, it's a heck of a lot of population. And then you don't have to give examples from 30 years ago. You know why EK Emirates 001? Because it was Emirates to Karachi. Oh, you know what? At some point in time, PIA was the best. At some point in time, we were one of the top 3 cities and at one point in time, we did this. And at one point in time, we had Mehbubul Haq, who was sent to South Korea. We wouldn't have to live in the past.
Yeah.
We will be able to live in the present and be able to give examples of present, not talk about Baba Adam examples that people hear. And they really annoy me. Everybody talks about we used to. Why do you talk about we used to? Talk about where you are today and where you are going.
And you know what? Leadership also calls for creating something which lives beyond you. So you want to create that repetitive ecosystem where we keep on generating these success stories that you're touching on. And so you use technology in your guest experience, as you call it.
A lot of technology is integrated, a lot of technology and more. I'm not a technologist, but I'm a technology freak. When I went to the first conference, I sit on the board of Health and Fitness Association, first Asian to sit on the biggest board, biggest trade consortium oversitting our $450 billion industry. So I got inducted last year as an honorary board member. There were 20 of us, basically. So the first conference I went to as an attendee, and I don't know, 2015 or something, first time, and I came back, and back then I was a CFO. My CEO asked me, Saudi, the founder, he said, Ahmar, how was the conference? I said, I'm not sure if I went to a fitness conference or a technology conference. So technology is heavily embedded. So from the rest of the world perspective, I think where TriFit Technologies, we're probably 4 to 5 years ahead of where the average fitness industry is. But from Pakistan's perspective, we are light years ahead. Things that we're doing, we're light years ahead, right? So alhamdulillah, we're excited about what we're doing. We're excited about the experience that we're giving. We're excited about the fact that, us shareholders, we have made a commitment that we will give back a big portion of what we make back into the community, And then we decided that, we'll not give from our profits. We'll give from our revenue. Because if you give from a profit, then you are motivated to part cost, to reduce the profit. So I was able to convince, and I'm grateful that my other partners, our shareholders, especially Saudi shareholders who are the main sponsors, they said, beautiful idea. Let's give from the top line. Top line, we give money to the community back. So, if I'm a member today at TriFit, I know that my money is going towards certain causes. I think this last 3 months, we probably supported 40 to 50 different causes. Alhamdulillah. So excited about that, excited about being, I'm not saying it to brag or to impress you, but to impress upon a point. And the point is that, it's a responsibility to give back to the community. We focus mostly on empowerment, not on, teaching people how to fish rather than handing them a fish.
And that's what's needed very badly. It's needed very badly because as we're coming to the end of this beautiful conversation, I think we should have allocated 2-3 hours because there is so much wisdom, and inshallah in future we will be inviting you back again with, like 500 clubs and, IPO and all that progress it's only going to happen, right?
Inshallah.
It's just a matter of time for it to unfold. 2 main key points I want to touch on as we wrap up. Number one, when you talk about or when you mention corruption, what I have understood, if there is a living wage or if there is a living expenses sitting at 100,000 per se, and the system is designed to only give officially because that's all we can afford and that's all we can actually show, and I'm talking about on the governmental level and the policy level, what happens is that 100,000 has to be made up for somehow. Right? And that is going to be made up for. What you just beautifully touched on is that if people create ease of business, ultimately there's going to be a lot of economic activities taking place. There's going to be a lot of money in the ecosystem. And then there will still be the percentage who are going to do corruption. But I do believe, and I have interacted with a lot of people, that I know they do this corruption, but they can't seem to think of any other way to get out because they haven't seen the success stories and stuff. And seeing someone as competent as you are and the way you're designing this ecosystem and hitting on the first principles, man, it makes me very happy.
Thank you.
It gets really sort of, the hope sort of sometimes blurs when you look at what's got going. But meeting people and seeing that people have this beautiful insights and something to show for. You have done it and the world can see it. I can walk into TriFit and experience all of that you're talking about. So I want to applaud that. I want to thank you. Thank you for that. So the question out of this is, so in this ecosystem that you're building, you're going to need people who own it. Okay, so that 3% redefining possible.
That's right.
So they can help you get to the stage where you want TriFit to get to, right? So what other elements? So you talked about the sport academy. I think it's genius because you are creating quality trainers. That's one element of it. What other parts where innovation can be taken, like sort of considered for aspiring entrepreneurs, so they can be like, okay, Ahmar is on a mission. TriFit is doing this. Okay, I think with the fitness, this is be a great addition to the ecosystem. So are there any sort of like, starting sparks or seeds you might want to put into the aspiring entrepreneurs?
In the fitness industry.
In the fitness ecosystem that you are building?
See, in the fitness space, again, success principles, we're not going to talk about again, right? Because whether you're building a gym or a sports shop or a meat shop, principles will always remain the same, right? So we're not going to talk about that. But I think it's important to understand what are the different businesses that exist within the fitness industry. So if I'm an entrepreneur, I need to know, right? So I can, if I'm a fitness trainer, because a lot of people get into fitness because they have a fitness background, unlike me. I mean, I've always had a gym membership from my college days in university and before that in Karachi also. I always knew the importance of fitness. I always knew the fact that if I want to be successful in corporate life, I want to look apart, right? Because everybody does. Imagine who would make me in charge of their company if I'm not treating my own body properly. Yeah, my body is my temple, right? If I treat my body like crap, how would I treat somebody else's business? Anyway, I digress. Coming back to your question. So one is, if I'm a fitness trainer, what could I do? Well, I could be a personal trainer, right? I could be, it's a small business, but I could be a personal trainer. I could go to people's homes, or I go to different gyms and I can do personal training. I'll make a decent living. The second business I could do, well, I'm a little more entrepreneurial, a little more enterprising, and I say, you know what, I'm going to pick up a bunch of fitness trainers and I will create a personal training business, whereby it's like a 1-800 personal trainer, if you know what I mean, right?
I do.
So if Amin is looking for a personal trainer and he wants to train at home or wherever, he calls that, he knows this company has got quality trainers, everybody's certified with IC reps, for instance, Sport Academy, you know that they're not those Chinese dentists that existed back then, but they're really, really qualified fitness trainers. So that's my second business. Then my third business is, that could be another business. Another third opportunity could be, maybe I'm a great yogi. I've actually gotten certified in yoga. So I build a yoga studio. And because I've got a following, if you are an expert in what you do, you'll have 100, 200, 300, 400 people living. So this is, you're on the other side of town. But if I am following you and you're a yogi, I would come 3 days a week because I want to do yoga with you. And I'll have that business. That's a third business that I could do. Or I could do a neighborhood gym. I don't have a big investment, probably 3, 4, 5 crores, 7 crores, 8 crore rupees up to, right? I could build a neighborhood gym. It may not be the best, but it serves the local community. For instance, closest to this place is TriFit. Now, TriFit is 15 minutes drive from here, right? Maybe you don't want to drive 15 minutes, right? The one near Lucky One Mall is 15 minutes drive from here. And you say, you know what, I don't want to drive 15 minutes, but if there was a local gym, I could just go there. But if I'm going to a local gym and if I'm paying, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 rupees, they should not be charging the price of a Corolla if it's an Alto, if you know what I mean, right? So local gym, local price, so it's attractive. Because if a person says, you know what, I can go drive a Corolla, which is TriFit, but why should I pay Corolla price here for an Alto?
100%.
Right? So understand your business and price it right. And then, of course, if you have big investment, if you have big vision, like what TriFit is doing, then clearly you can do that too, right? You can build what we call a big box concept. And then you create a chain and you create a big box concept. So there are 4 or 5 different things that you could do. There's one more thing you could do, but that's also enterprising. For instance, let's say you're a great yogi. And not just that you're a great yogi, but you can also create yoga programs. So you can also get into franchising. You can create studios and teach other people, help other people get into business. So they come in, I say, you know what, I want to be a yoga. For instance, Orange Theory is one example. Barry's Boot Camp is another example. There are many examples of small studios where the F45, somebody's open F45 in Lahore as well. So the guy wanted to be in business. He wanted a proven concept. So, and he probably didn't have the background that I do because he probably doesn't come from fitness industry. He went and took the franchise for F45. F45 is a studio, right? You come in, you do a 45-minute circuit. They've got 10, 12, 14 stations, and you come do a circuit and you leave. As I said, in the West, what I noticed that people had 2 memberships, F45 and a big box. What we did is that we brought the same concept inside. Well, you could do that too, right? But then there are so many different things you could do in a fitness, but know what you are good at and know what you're doing.
Know your stuff.
Know your stuff. We're not a neighborhood gym. I don't pretend to be a neighborhood gym. We're a big box. We have 3. We're going to have, if inshallah, according to a plan, we should have 30 plus clubs in Karachi alone over the next 5 to 6 years. We should have, right? We'll still not be neighborhood gym. Because Karachi is so huge. It's 30 plus million. Neighborhood gym means that TriFit is from wherever you are, it's 5 minutes drive. Doesn't have to be. Would be 10, 15 minutes drive from wherever you are, which is good for, that's how big box concept works everywhere in the world.
And they can set TriFit as a benchmark to give that experience to their local community.
Which is good, right? Which is now what people are doing. They're learning the fitness industry. See, we are not a humble nation, so they don't acknowledge it. But the ones who do, the biggest reward for us is when we walk into somebody's club and they invite us and we see that
look, we have taken this inspiration because
the inspiration.
Because you're thinking like an artist. An artist wants the art to be appreciated, and if it's appreciated, it actually gets them to do even better, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. We should be able to appreciate the good work that someone has done, and then give them the credit when the credit is due. Because you're not going to do that. Someone else is not going to appreciate your good work, and the cycle is going to keep on going. So,
okay, well, maybe. I frankly, what you said kind of makes sense too. Although I'm not that sort of what do you call it? I didn't think in that perspective. But I'll tell you why I see the opportunities ripe. You are the #1 diabetic country in the world today, per capita. #1. From cardiac disease, you are top 3 in the world. You are top 3 in obesity in the world. You are top 3 in mental illness. I Googled it. They said 45 million people in Pakistan are suffering from some type of mental disorder. Government of Pakistan statistics. So I don't know what the reality would be, right? You are top 3 in hypertension. Do you know how much effort it takes to get a heart attack? It takes 20 years of tremendous hard work, of punishing your body, of smoking, of eating unhealthy, of sleeping late, being lethargic, having an extremely unhealthy lifestyle to get a heart attack.
20 years.
20, 25, it doesn't happen in 3-4 years. And when you're top 3 in the world today, and diabetes type 2, diabetes is all lifestyle related. It's not hereditary. So imagine the effort when we are born, the amount of effort we put in to be #1 diabetes type 2 country in the world. Imagine how much kachara we're consuming, how much confectionery, how much garbage cookies, bakery items that we're consuming, right? How much garbage we are focused. Imagine as a nation how focused we are that we'll continue to consume garbage so that we can be the #1 diabetic capital, the #1 diabetic country in the world. It requires a lot of effort, man.
We want to maintain, so at least we are on top of something.
But a businessman like me says, well, here's an opportunity. I just tell them, don't work that hard. I'll tell you, and I won't even tell you that you have to give up everything. But when you start coming to the gym, the reason I love this business because of the return on effort. I've been into so many businesses. Consulting, I've seen probably, there's no business that I've not seen. Very few that I've not seen, right? But I've not seen a business where the return on effort is so quick. In 3 months, when you come to the fitness club, and you don't have to come 5 days a week, come 2-3 times, good enough. That's what you should do. Because 5 days, especially the beautiful lifestyle that you've had, you'll actually injure yourself. Come 2-3 days till you build yourself, right? That's why I get so scared when people are playing paddle tennis here, because it's a disaster on your limbs. You're extremely unhealthy, and now you're playing paddle. And you'll injure yourself. Your body will not be able to handle it. Going back to the point I'm trying to make was that the ROI is so great. In 3 months, your husband-wife relationship will improve. Your self-image will improve. Your work productivity start improving, and then you'll start delivering better. You'll get pay raise, your promotions as well, right? Which business in the world, which activity in the world gives you 3-month return?
So we have a tradition that as the guest leaving, we share the last guest left with the 2 key messages for the youth and aspiring entrepreneurs to focus on, the 2 simple messages. So the last guest we had, they talked about the 3C model, okay, where they were talking about the creativity, commitment, and collaboration. And then they also talked about being a lifelong learner, These are the two key messages they left with the audience. Now, those two keywords or key messages out of this entire conversation, what is it that you want to?
So we've talked a lot about different things, right? But the one thing that has changed my life is my ability to understand the three powers.
So what are those three life-changing powers that one understand they can ultimately reach their maximum potential?
So we talked about success principle, the three powers. The first one is the power of spoken word. Now I say it the way I understand this, right? Of course, religion is not my area of expertise. But you see, God said in Arabic, kun fayakun, to build the universe, right? Kun fayakun means may happen, and it happens. We also know that God has put power, his own power, under us, not the same level, but we are his Khalifa, we are his representative on earth. Whether you're a Muslim, non-Muslim, you are a human. God has built you, has sent you with the powers that he has used because he has put his nur inside us, his light inside us. So the power of spoken words. So the first thing is one must control how to use his words, because the words are your seeds, right? So control the power of spoken words, right? The second one is the power of unity. We all know a single stick and versus 5 sticks. Single stick you can break, 5 you cannot. There is tremendous power of unity. 1 and 1 is not 2, but 1 and 1 is 11. I think we all know that, right? But the power of unity. God built this universe through the power of unity. The third power is the power of submission. This is a very interesting one, because the moment the word submission comes, we think that we have to, it's weakness. As a matter of fact, it's not. Power of submission is your ability to get power over you, over the person you're submitting to. Allow me to elaborate this thought. So I'll give you an example. My grandfather was a very, very religious person, and prayed all night. He was a Sufi, the unsung Sufi. He was not a commercial Sufi. So I remember when I was graduating from college, it's just one example of power of submission, and I can give you dozens of examples. So he would, so I remember it was my final year, 1994. And 1993, December, I came to Pakistan on winter holidays. And he was not well. And I was talking to him and I said, Nana, it is very tough these days. We used to call him Abbajan. I said, Abbajan, it's very tough for me to get articleship for my chartered accountancy because the economy is really bad. He said, Acha, don't worry. I'll pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll get it. I said, okay. So I went back and I kept doing what I was supposed to do. I kept on applying because I believed in the rain dance. That's another story. You know, the classic example of rain dance. Rain dance is you dance until it rains. So I kept on applying so I distinctly remember that day, it was Ramadan, and I was planning to come to Karachi for my spring break. And I just came back from, I went to we call it pigeonhole where our mail used to come. I went in and I used to get a lot of rejections, right? And then one letter came, it was an offer letter. And I couldn't believe it. And I ran to the phone booth and I called my mom and my dad to tell them, oh my God, I got articleship. And my mom was crying on the other side. And my mom said, Ahmar, you know what, Abbajan just passed away. It was 27th Ramadan, right? He passed away on 27th Ramadan. And immediately, you know, I said, oh my God, anyway, I got on a plane. But many, many years later, when I learned the power of submission, I understood that he was in so much submission to God that one last thing that he asked for one of his grandchildren, God did not even refuse that. Today's example, our youngest daughter, Rania. Everybody knows that in the house. Anybody wants anything to be done from me, work through Rania. Because Rania, so people think, oh, because you're spoiling her. No, because she is completely submitted to me. Rania, although I'm blessed with a phenomenal family, my wife, my children, everybody, but Rania will never ever do anything to make me upset. Hence, she has power over me through her submission. She gets anything and everything she wants. That's the power of submission. Today, 20 years down the road, 25 years later, people who I worked for are investors in TriFit. The reason I have power over them, because I was the most submitted team player on their team. Hence, I have power over them. The Saudis invested in Pakistan because I am the one who helped them become fairly rich and very rich. And they know that he's one of the most loyal, most submitted person that worked for us. That's the power of submission. It's the power of spoken word, power of unity, and power of submission.
In order for you to be an effective leader, you must be a phenomenal student. And a phenomenal student submits.
That's right.
And once you know the trade, then when you're going to become a leader, not only you will do justice to the ones who are submitting to you, but you will be actually living your potential or the purpose that you are here to serve on this journey.
God's green earth, right? God's green earth.
Yeah.
See, a leader cannot be, as you said, a leader cannot be a leader unless you're a very good student. But then you'll always be a student. Today, if I am a good leader, inshallah, I hope I am, because I'm connected to better, bigger leaders than me who I use them as my mentors. And that connection can never break. Even if you're Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because he was connected directly to God. God was mentoring him. You cannot be the be-all. You have to be mentored by somebody.
100%.
If you're not mentored, then that's also part of the development issue here, where everybody feels that they're born with a PhD, then they cannot be taught anymore. So that's also part of the journey that we teach when we are trying to develop our own team, that get humble, right? And be ready to be mentored. And a mentor's job is not to be to make you feel happy, it's to make you feel uncomfortable, to say things that you don't like. That's the only way you learn, right? So that he can watch your blind spots and help you grow. Anyway, so that's my sort of understanding of the three powers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amin, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ahmar. Thank you.